On the ground! Don't move! I'm Colonel Nathaniel Drummond, United States Marine Corps. You have the wrong person.
Yeah, they all say that when they get caught.
You think we don't know why you're here? People like you don't just end up in houses like this. This is my home. I've lived here 9 years.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really tough story. What happens when a decorated military hero is treated like a criminal by his own government? We're going to look at how one single catastrophic arrest completely exposed a broken system.
So this whole story, it starts with one man, Colonel Nathaniel Drummond. And let me tell you, he's the real deal. We're talking 26 years of service, a top-secret security clearance, even a Bronze Star for combat valor. This is a man who absolutely defines dedication.
But then, one morning, everything changes. He's just finished a workout, he's in his own driveway, and suddenly federal ICE agents swarm his home. They throw him to the ground and zip tie him, all while his 4-year-old son is right there, screaming.
So, the question is, how on earth does something like this happen to a decorated colonel? Well, that's what we're here to unpack. We're going to look at the arrest, the investigation that followed, and the really deep systemic flaws it uncovered in the very system he swore an oath to defend.
All right, so let's start with the arrest itself. This wasn't just some mix-up. It was a violent, completely mistaken action that sent, and I mean this, shockwaves all the way to the Pentagon.
And this quote, this is the message that just blazed through federal channels from Quantico. Think about that. This wasn't a, hey, can we get some information? It was a demand. The Marine Corps' reaction was immediate, it was furious, and it really set the stage for the massive institutional battle that was about to unfold.
So what was happening on the ground was just a total, catastrophic breakdown of protocol. I mean, Drummond's wife, Simone, she comes out and demands to see a warrant. Guess what? There isn't one. Drummond himself calmly identifies himself as a Marine colonel, and the lead agent, a guy named Dale Kircher, just dismisses him. And the worst part? This is all happening while their little boy's watching in terror, and the neighbors' cameras are rolling, capturing every single second.
And from the driveway, it only gets worse. What happened next wasn't just a simple mistake, it was a complete and total collapse of procedure, a complete violation of Colonel Drummond's most basic rights.
Get this. For 2 hours and 47 minutes, nearly 3 hours, a high-ranking U.S. Marine colonel was held in a cold, fluorescent-lit cell, still in his workout clothes, cuffed to a steel bench.
And let's not forget who we're talking about here. This happened to a man with an absolutely impeccable 26-year record of serving the United States. This is someone trusted with the nation's highest secrets.
And during that whole time, he was denied everything. Literally everything. No rights read. No phone call allowed. They didn't even offer him a glass of water. It was like his entire identity as Nathaniel Drummond, a colonel in the U.S. Marines, was just ignored.
So, after a supervisor finally runs his name and realizes what a disastrous error they've made, what kind of apology do you think he got? Well, this was it. A junior agent hands him his stuff, mumbles, "There was a miscommunication," and doesn't even make eye contact. That's it.
Okay, so as Colonel Drummond is walking out of that field office, two huge, powerful federal institutions start to move. But, and this is key, they started moving with very, very different goals in mind.
And you can see that contrast right here, and wow, is it stark. On one side, you've got ICE with this vague, defensive, corporate speak, reviewing the circumstances. But on the other side, the Marine Corps. Their response is just blunt, it's furious, and it's a promise to fight. And let me tell you, that was a promise they kept.
So federal investigators from the DHS Inspector General's office and the FBI, they jump on this. And it didn't take them long to figure out this was no isolated incident. This was not a simple miscommunication.
The first question was pretty simple. How could something like this possibly happen? But as soon as they started pulling Agent Kircher's records, well, the answer became horrifyingly clear. This had happened before. A lot.
The data they found, it just revealed this shocking and systematic pattern. Take a look at this. Out of 141 operations led by Kircher, 117 of them targeted Black or Latino individuals. And then, look at that last number. His actions led to 34 other confirmed wrongful detentions of U.S. citizens or legal residents. You see, this wasn't a one-off mistake. This was a method. And it gets worse. When investigators recovered internal emails between Agent Kircher and his partner Troy Skaggs, it revealed the truly dehumanizing mindset behind their operations. This wasn't law enforcement language, it was the language of sport.
This casual cruelty was just standard practice for them. This quote here, it was in an email about an upcoming operation in a suburb. It just strips away any pretense of professional conduct, right? It lays their motivations completely bare.
So, at this point, the evidence was just overwhelming. It didn't take long at all for a grand jury to act, which led to federal indictments and a really high-profile trial that was about to put this entire pattern of misconduct on full public display.
The prosecutors, they built an absolutely ironclad case. First, the jury saw the videos, the Ring doorbell footage, the cell phone videos of the arrest. Then they heard the agent's own chilling words read directly from those emails. And then, one by one, 34 other victims took the stand and told their stories. All different, but all tragically, heartbreakingly the same.
It only took the jury a day and a half. They came back with the verdict, guilty. Guilty on all counts of depriving citizens of their civil rights under color of law, which basically means they illegally used their government authority to do this. Kircher and his partner got federal prison sentences, and those 2 supervisors who ignored years of complaints, they were fired.
But, a verdict isn't always the end of the story. For the Drummond family, the trauma was still very real. And for the system itself, well, the fight for actual, meaningful reform was really just getting started. The Drummond family filed a civil rights lawsuit, and it resulted in a $4.7 million settlement, one of the largest of its kind in recent IC history. But maybe even more important than the money, the settlement forced sweeping reforms in the department. We're talking new independent oversight and mandatory body camera compliance.
But really, no settlement can ever fully repair that kind of damage. This question, that came from their 4-year-old son, Elijah, it just highlights the deep personal trauma that was inflicted on this family. Their sense of safety in their own home was just shattered, and that's something no amount of money can ever restore.
So, in the end, the Drummond family's fight led to convictions, prison time, and real systemic reforms. But it leaves us with a really critical question, doesn't it? When the trust between a citizen, especially a decorated soldier like Colonel Drummond, and his own country is so violently broken, what does it truly take to make it right again?
Picture this. It's 6:14 a.m. on a totally quiet Saturday morning in Ashburn, Virginia. A guy is out washing his truck in his driveway. And then, out of nowhere, 2 unmarked SUVs screech to a halt. 4 federal agents jump out, weapons already drawn. What happens in the next few minutes is a story of a colossal mistake, of snap judgments, and a neighborhood that just wasn't going to let it slide. In the middle of all that chaos, as he's being shoved to the ground, he says this. But listen to how he says it. It's calm, it's controlled, it's firm. That's not the sound of a guilty man begging. It's the sound of a man stating a fact, knowing that a terrible, terrible mistake is happening right now. And this is the absolute heart of the story. The man being zip-tied on his own property is Colonel Nathaniel Drummond, an active duty officer, a man with one of the highest security clearances the government gives out. The gap between who this man is and what is happening to him is it's staggering.
So, to really get the scale of this injustice, you have to understand the man himself. Who exactly is Colonel Drummond? I mean, just look at this career. It's unbelievable. We're talking 26 years of active duty service in the Marines, 3 combat deployments, and that includes places like Fallujah, some of the most brutal urban fighting since Vietnam. He's earned a Bronze Star with Valor for saving 7 of his men under fire. He has a Purple Heart. This isn't just some soldier. This is a true leader, a hero, highly decorated and deeply respected. And his life wasn't just defined by that uniform. Back home, in his community, he was a pillar. He's a husband to a trauma surgeon, a dad, a Little League coach. He was the guy who put together the breakfasts for local veterans. He was known, he was trusted, he was respected by pretty much everyone on his block.
Which, of course, makes what happened next all the more shocking. So let's break down this ambush, moment by moment. Just look at how fast this goes sideways. In less than a single minute, with 0 questions asked, no warrant ever shown, not even an attempt to confirm who he is, a decorated Marine colonel is violently taken down on his own driveway. The whole operation was pure aggression, with absolutely 0 due process. And then we get this line. This is the quote that reveals everything. The lead agent says this to Colonel Drummond, and it just cuts right to the bone. This wasn't about evidence, it was about an assumption. They saw a black man in a nice house and their brains just short-circuited. They decided he didn't belong. This one sentence tells you everything you need to know about what was driving their actions. So what was their official excuse for all this? Well, it turns out it was completely baseless. The person they were looking for wasn't named Nathaniel Drummond. The name on their sheet didn't match his age, it didn't match his description, and it didn't match any public record tied to that house for the past 9 years. A 30-second Google search could have stopped this whole thing before it started. But here's the thing. These agents weren't operating in a bubble. People were watching, and they didn't just stand there and watch. They acted. And you can almost feel the tension building. First, his 14-year-old son Elijah comes running out screaming. Then a neighbor, who happens to be a retired Air Force Master Sergeant, walks right across the street to vouch for him, trying to inject some sanity into the situation. And finally, his wife, Dr. Simone Drummond, gets home from an overnight shift at the hospital, and she immediately goes into action, documenting his injuries with her phone and demanding to see the one thing they don't have, a warrant. So now they're faced with direct testimony from another military veteran and legal challenges from a doctor. And what do the agents do? They just blow them off. Their response, "We'll sort it out at the field office," is just this chilling refusal to admit in real time that they are making a catastrophic mistake. You know, this incident wasn't just some random mistake. When investigators started digging into it later, they found a really disturbing pattern, especially when it came to what wasn't recorded. And this chart just lays it out perfectly. It shows the complete and total breakdown of procedure. Federal protocol says they have to verify identity, produce a warrant, and turn on their body cameras. Well, Colonel Drummond told them his military ID was right inside the house. They ignored him. As we know, no warrant was ever shown. And this is the critical part. Not a single one of their body cameras was ever turned on.
Let's just pause on that number for a second. 4. There were 4 agents on scene. That means this wasn't one guy who forgot to hit record. This was a team-wide, coordinated failure to document what they were doing, and that doesn't really point to a simple mistake, does it? It points to a conscious choice to make sure there was no official record.
And if you look at the lead agent, a guy named Dale Kircher, well, his track record speaks for itself. 7 previous complaints for excessive force, 5 for unlawful detention, and get this, over 60 prior incidents where he just failed to record. And the results of every single one of those complaints, internally dismissed. This wasn't the first time he'd broken the rules. It was just the first time he got caught doing it on camera. And here is the beautiful irony in all of this. The agents went out of their way to create no official record of the event, but the community did. Multiple neighbors were filming on their cell phones. And what the agents didn't know was that a Ring doorbell camera right across the street was capturing the entire thing, from start to finish, in crystal clear HD. So, with Colonel Drummond being hauled away in an unmarked car, the situation looked pretty bleak. But it was far, far from over. Standing there in her driveway, watching them take her husband, Dr. Drummond didn't panic. She just pulled out her phone and made one very specific, very powerful call. She called Colonel Drummond's commanding officer directly. In a call that lasted less than 2 minutes, she explained that a high-ranking Marine, an officer with top-secret clearance, had just been unlawfully taken by federal agents. In that moment, this stopped being just a citizen complaint. It was now a full-blown military matter.
And the response from the Marines was immediate. I mean, look at this timeline. Within 90 seconds of that call ending, the information is just rocketing up the chain of command. Within 8 minutes, top brass at Quantico are on the phone with the leadership at ICE. The very system that Colonel Drummond had served for 26 years was now moving like a freight train to protect him.
Which really leaves us with this final question, doesn't it? The agents tried to create a world where their actions were never documented, never proven. But the cameras of a watchful neighborhood and the power of one single phone call created a different record entirely. So it makes you wonder, in the fight for accountability, when the official story is intentionally left blank, who gets to write the truth?